one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Welcome to another edition of Backfire with John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey and our chief engineer, Daniel Brantley.
Where's the beef?
Of course, myself, Steve Hickson. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Glad you're here. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask Franklin what he'd like to talk about this morning.
Well, looks like the drought's over.
Yeah, it looks like the drought. Weather forecast is 70% chance of scattered showers again today.
Traffic update. Be careful going to Nashville today. In addition to all the road work coming out of Chattanooga, Bonnaroo starts today.
Oh, that's right.
Unless you have a burning urge to sit in your car for many, many hours, I suggest wait a few days.
I tell you, it's getting tough trying to go to Nashville and back. Terrible.
Of course, you know, the people that run Bonnaroo have taken over Riverbend as well. How did that turn out? I know they shortened it. They increased the price.
A lot lower attendance this year.
Was it?
That's what I understand. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did they take in as much money?
I don't know, but I understood, I think last year, that they didn't do well financially, and that was part of the reason why they lowered it anyway. Maybe there's just some fatigue with that idea. It's been around for 35 years now.
Well, part of the problem
30
is
years?
its proximity to Bonnaroo as well. It's hard to attract the groups.
Well, the groups haven't attracted me in a long time. Oh, Lord. Would you like to talk about taxes this morning?
Sure.
Well, what is the update, John? You keep
I don't know. We're having to listen to the poor, pitiful me county commissioner stories about how terribly hard of a decision this is. It's emotional. We're emotional now about it. Well, you know what? I bet the people that you're reaching into their pocket to take more money out are fairly emotional about it, too.
Well, with that enlightening comment, however, what do you understand is it presently,
well, the story
6-6 with 2 on the fence?
The story was it was going to be a tie, and it was going to go to the mayor, and the mayor was going to make the decision. And cynically,
the mayor made a decision. He gave him a
balanced budget.
Now, I have to ask you one question.
Sure.
Do you think what I'm hearing is it's not good financial sense to take from your savings account to try to balance your budget? In other words, they're taking money from a savings account to balance this budget.
The rainy day fund?
Here's what this amounts to.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of commissioners up there that have made up their mind they're going to raise taxes because they want more money to play with. And when you're arguing with someone about an action and they give you a reason, a justification, and when that justification falls apart, they give you another justification, and when that one falls apart, they give you another justification, you fall back to, you don't care what the reason is, you're just going to do this. You've decided. So first it was the Pie Center. Well, then when the Pie Center started falling apart, that it wasn't put together, it wasn't fleshed out enough, well, then it was, now I'm hearing Black Fox and Mayfield School. Well, they've got the money for those. But they're going to give the money to the Pie Center, and now they're going to tell all the parents at Black Fox and Mayfield, we have to have this for you. Then it was the sheriff, and then when the sheriff, amazingly, and to his extreme credit, turned in a balanced budget taking care of the lower-paid deputies without a tax increase, then they just moved on to, well, now it's the fun back. We don't want to dip into that. Why don't y'all just be honest and say, we've already made up our mind, we're going to cram this down your throat, and we don't care. That's what's happening.
Would you be easier to get along with a year from now if they waited a year?
It'll never be easier to get along with that.
Look, for example, Commissioner Davis, this is emotional, and this is a hard decision. No, it's not. It's not a hard decision. It's an easy decision. A hard decision would be to say, okay, I'm going to press that we convert to the 1981 Financial Management Act, which would force us to start actually buying in bulk, which would force us to actually look at the budget hard. We're operating under a 60 or 70-year-old financial management. That'd be a hard decision, Commissioner Davis. Why don't you push that one through? Or why don't you push through zero-based budgeting? so that we actually look at every line item every year and say, we spent this last year, but we don't need to spend it this year. That'd be a hard decision. But let me ask Commissioner Davis and every other commissioner up there, in your personal budgets, in your personal lives, if you could make one decision and automatically increase your available funds by a huge amount, would that be a hard decision for you? I'd ask every Bradley Countyan out there, if you could snap your fingers and just all of a sudden have more money to work with the next year, is that a hard decision?
You know what's a hard decision to make? Really and truly, staying within your budget.
That's what I'm saying. I'm so sick of this. Oh, poor, pitiful me. I'm a commissioner, and I've got to decide whether to reach into your billfold and take more money.
Well, it's not an emotional question. It should be a coldly rational question. And the rational question is, have we identified a need that's really important for the community, whatever it is, all right? And is this the way to pay for it?
Pay increases.
That's the analysis.
And look, Franklin and I, as we argue, he's spot on that. And I'll give him some fodder here. They're all Republicans, and they all ran not too long ago and went, I'm a Republican, and I'm a conservative, and I'm going to manage your money, and I'm against, this is the important part, I'm against raising taxes. And what are we, less than a year into their term, and we have a hard decision, we're going to raise your taxes, and we're so devastated by having to take more money away from you.
Where's the beef? If you're a county commissioner, phone lines are
Feel
open
free
for
to call
you.
in and tell me how hard this decision is for you and how you're racked with indecision and guilt over it.
614-5553, county commissioners only.
All right. They're having a hard time keeping the Bradley County officers online because they keep leaving. They're not getting paid enough, and they can go to other places and make more money.
Well, that's true.
Okay, so what should we do about it?
Well, Sheriff Lawson put in a budget that is addressing that with the money he had. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. I had a commissioner say, well, once the Pie Center fell apart, we just fall back to another justification. Well, the sheriff's deputies, and I want to fix that. Well, then run for sheriff, because Sheriff Lawson has fixed it or is trying to fix it within the constraints of his budget.
Let me ask you
I don't want anybody to run for sheriff. I think Sheriff Lawson's doing a great job.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm not trying to turn any rocks over or create any problems, but several years ago, the commissioner said they couldn't get enough information to make just decisions. So they created a new position.
Yes.
And that's the county commission executive assistant.
Right.
That system was created just so the county commissioners could get the information they wanted when they wanted it and didn't have to wait.
I've not heard too much criticism about that recently. If you
what he's driving at is the pay increase that's going to go there.
That's right. First of all,
and this is not personal in any way, shape, or form.
It's not personal in any way, but that was a position created just for the county commissioners to be able to get information that they really need so they can make decisions. Now then, a county commissioner, it's my understanding, are paid. Do we not pay them?
Yes.
And from what I understand, it's about $10,000 a year per.
Which, by the way, Polk County commissioners get $600 a year.
Mm-hmm. Plus, they get health benefits.
Correct.
Okay? Why can't they look up this information themselves? Why do we need a $44,000 person just to give them information? Let me tell you something. We're involved in a bureaucracy that's not
think I can
funneling
answer
right.
that question.
Okay, go ahead.
And I don't mean any disrespect, but not everybody on the county commission has the skill set to pull that kind of financial information out of very complicated budgeting.
and
there are people
they can
who
ask
are.
for it. They can
Right,
ask
let
for
me
it.
make a capitalist type application to that then. If we exposed that through incompetence, perhaps we'd elect people that could.
Okay. I haven't seen any kind of qualifications test for county commission
my point
that's
is,
been put out
Franklin,
there.
is if you cover for that, then the public is never made aware that commissioner or that commissioner doesn't comprehend. So you cover for it, and they keep getting reelected.
Well, let me ask you something. If I wanted something, if I was a commissioner and asked for some information, would I not be provided? Do I have to have my own assistant over there to do it?
Actually, here's where I'm terribly conflicted.
Well, but I think,
That came out of the they had a hard time getting information out of other constitutionally elected offices. And there was a battle over where this person that kind of helped them, where their loyalties lie. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem for me is, and again, this is not personal, but if you go back even 4 years, there has been a huge ramp up in the salary on that line item, that position. And my problem is not with it not being, it's a good position, the person works really hard, does a great job. My problem is with the transparency to the community. It's the same thing as the fire department. We were told it was going to cost one thing, and then it rapidly has expanded because it was undersold to us. So that's my problem with it.
Now, careful, that one might be a little close to home.
What?
Wasn't Lisa
wanted
in
that position for the commission, and they do need a position because they couldn't get information. And they for example, they would get information on a huge decision a week before it was due.
I personally don't think that position is necessarily a bad thing.
I don't either.
I actually see, if we're going to have citizen county commissioners and so forth from all walks of life in there, I can see the benefit to that.
All right, let me ask you something. We can't hire policemen because we're not paying them enough. $44,000 might be a little bit of help. I'm just trying to figure out ways to cut the budget here and there so we don't have to raise it.
Okay.
Well, look,
I know what the counter argument is. Maybe we have done a decent job with that over the years, given that we haven't had a tax increase in 15 years.
I don't accept that we have to have a tax increase ever.
Well, I don't think that that's a reasonable
Why?
position to take unless it's backed up with some specific analysis on a specific thing.
Well, they're taking more income.
Needs change. Sometimes.
Are they not taking more income?
No, I mean, here's the problem, Frank. I'm not disagreeing with you, but here's the problem. If we had signed a contract with the city for animal control, if we had signed some kind of contract with the city for a fire department, we probably wouldn't have the needs that we're having right now. And so my problem with this is decisions are made that some people will say, we see down the road, we see what this is going to do, but the public is kind of kept in the dark, a decision is made, and now we're sitting here going, we need more money. And that's what bothers me, because when you don't shine a light on how bad a decision was or how it wasn't executed very well, you just get more bad decisions in the future.
That's the other side of it.
Look, Monroe County has a $2 million deficit. We don't have a deficit. Now, we're not getting quite as much money because, to be honest, the state comptroller did an audit and found that our appraisals were overdone. And so they've lowered the appraisal, and that's affected the amount of money that's going to come in. But my point is, Monroe County is trying to open a new jail, and they have a $2 million hole in their budget. Polk County has over 60% of their land is not on their budget because the government owns the land. So they get no money. And our people are down here going, this is so hard.
Let's hear that
Well,
one
then
more
you got
time.
McMinn County.
Part again.
Well, you got McMinn County right above us that has the lowest tax rate in the state and about the fourth lowest tax rate in the country, who builds their schools with cash. They have zero debt. Now, how in the hell is McMinn County able to operate like that? They have 2 high schools.
They have no growth.
Well, the first thing they did was raise taxes, and that's how they did it.
Who?
McMinn County.
My point
That's
is
exactly what they did.
How many years ago?
About 15 years ago, they passed a large tax increase and said, this entire tax increase is going into a capital fund.
They fund every year.
And when the entire increase goes into it, and when we identify a need, we start setting money out of that until we have enough to pay for it.
But they have the lowest tax rate in the state.
I'm only telling you how they did it.
And they put 1.5 million.
Could you do that here?
year.
You could.
Yes, that'd be a hard decision.
You'd have to take that tax increase and do that with it and have that kind of discipline to do
They
it.
put 1.5 million every year in the capital fund. And so when they get ready to build a school, they pay cash. They have zero debt. We have, Lord, I don't even know, we have 50, 60, 70, 80 million dollars in debt. And Parkview School, the note on Parkview School is 18 years, or I'm going to take that back, 12 years of interest-only payments.
2.1% I saw was what our borrowing rate is right now.
That's pretty low. Look, the mayor put forward a budget that funds all these things without a tax increase.
But he took it from the savings account.
Well,
That's what I'm being told by the commission.
here's one. I'll give you an example. You have to know the context of that. For example, several years ago, the school board had a fund balance when the state required, I think, 3%. They had a fund balance of 12%. So the context is, what is our fund balance at? What level is it at? And what's it for? If you're funding it above the minimum requirement of the state, what are you doing it for?
They said they had to be making money before they could borrow money.
You know, I'm looking at Monroe County, $2 million hole. I'm looking at poor old Polk County up there, and these people in Bradley, as blessed as we are, going, we just can't make it. And it's so emotional that I'm going to cry after I raise your taxes. I'm going to go home and I'm just going to cry all night.
Well, now they've got, we're getting a call. Somebody's wanting to talk to us. Let's take a call real quick. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Well, I think there was 5 people on the finance committee, and they took a vote, and only 3 of them voted for that. There was 2 voted against it. So that's 60% voted for it, and 40% voted against it. You know, and then they bought that elephant over there, American Uniform Company, and they're going to school board's going to spend millions of dollars over there. You know, they need to count the cost before they jump.
Actually, you're hitting on really what the issue here. They bought a building they shouldn't have bought, and they're saddled with it now, and they've got to figure. And so instead of someone having the backbone to come to the public and say, we screwed up,
yeah,
they're gonna find some way to fund that so that they can try to pull it out of the fire.
Let me ask you a question, John. How much did Mayfield School get sold for?
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that.
I think it was $600,000-$700,000, and that was because somebody else was bidding against Lee University, or it wouldn't have brought that.
Right.
I went over there and looked at that. That building is a big brick building, kind of.
Which needed a lot of money spent on it.
Yeah, that's not the problem, Frank. The problem is city school board told us it couldn't be fixed. Mm-hmm. It was unrehabilitatable.
Well,
if that's a word.
Actually, if they had it right now, it would be the perfect building for what they need to do.
Probably.
And they wouldn't need this American Uniform building.
Here's the thing about American Uniform. I've been told that one of the reasons another industry didn't buy that is because the ceilings are not high enough to put the ceiling, the lights, and the sprinkler system in that current regs require. Now, so someone answer that one for me. Is it? Because, you know, people talked about asbestos, and they all got all upset, and, oh, there's no asbestos. Well, what they didn't say is, although there is formaldehyde. Okay, when we talk about asbestos, we're talking about contamination. So simply going, no, you're wrong, there's no asbestos, and not mentioning, oh, by the way, it's flooded with formaldehyde. That's not fair to the public either.
How about the roof? They're talking about $2 or $3 million to put a new roof on it.
Look, they bought a building they shouldn't have bought.
Amen.
All right, thanks, caller. Anything else?
What about if they've got to put a sprinkler system in? And that's going to cost a whale of a lot of money too, you know.
Well, the problem is I've been told the roof and all, because that building was built before the current standards were in place, and that there's not room to have industrial in there and have all of the things that are required now.
Well, there's certain parts of it that way, John. I'm going, by the way, the Pie Center is open today for a tour. I will be there.
What time?
From 10 to 2.
Hey, well, wonder whose heads are going to roll over this.
Nobody. That's the problem. Nobody's ever held accountable in our area.
I can't believe the school board allowed this to happen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I want to go on record as I'm for the Pie Center, and John, I think you've told me on the record you're for
like
the Pie
the concept.
Center. The concept is great.
I go back to what I said. None of this would be an issue if the school board had its own independent taxing authority. They would decide whether they really need it or not. Because they would be the ones that have to go to the voters and say, here's what it's going to cost to pay for it, and we're going to raise your taxes to do it.
Well, that's
direct
actually,
accountability.
He's hitting on one of the nails on the head. The real reason this is a hard decision for the commission is because they know the school board is going to turn around and say, you hate children. If you don't raise taxes, you hate children. You don't want them to be educated. Because that's what we do here. We spend money on our wants, and then we trot the children out. You know, just like I've said this over and over again, the Fine Arts Building, wonderful building. But when they spent over $5 million building the Fine Arts Building, the kids at Lake Forest were flooding. So after they got the Fine Arts Building built and spent the $5 million, then they turned around and went, oh, those poor little kids down at Lake Forest, they're flooding, we need some more money. Well, why didn't you do that before you built the Fine Arts Building? And I've run into tons of people out here that are supportive of the Pie Center, but they go, on the scale of priorities, it's not the top priority. And that's what's a hard decision for the commission, is setting priorities. And a tax increase gets them out of the position where they have to set priorities.
Now, the argument is they've been trying to get some things funded for years and haven't been able to do it.
You mean like they've been trying to close the gap between the bottom paying people and the top paying people while giving across the board percentage increases that make that very problem worse? That kind of issue?
Yes.
So for 15 years, we've talked about that problem, and we've actually contributed to making the problem worse.
I want to ask you a question, John. I know you're going to have knowledge of this. When the position of the county commission executive assistant started, what was the starting salary?
I don't know. It was down in the 20s.
And now it's $44,000.
Yeah.
Now then, there was a raise given and not a bonus. From what I understand, she was given the raise because she had completed certification of a bunch of things that she needed.
Look, I think she does a great job. I think it's
I've heard she did she does a wonderful job.
Her. The problem here is the optics. It looks bad to be talking about a 2% or 2.5% for deputies, and her raise is bigger. It's just an optics problem.
Why couldn't they just give a bonus?
I don't know. She works hard, and she has a terribly difficult job working for 14 different people. Every one of them has a different personality, and some of them need more than others.
I wonder how many of the 14 actually use her.
I will say that from my experience just in the past, not a lot of them don't. Mm-hmm. But the ones that do use her very efficiently.
I imagine that she works pretty closely with the folks on the Finance
Committee.
Which makes sense.
Well, I'd like to...
Here's what's kind of hard for me. I actually think $44,000 is probably not enough.
It's not even a competitive salary.
Yeah, it's not a competitive salary for that position. The problem here is just the optics and the timing of it.
All right.
So
like I said, if it could wait one more year.
The position itself, 44, is not enough. Mm-hmm. And in her particular case, she's more than deserving.
All right, John, you're in charge. What would you do?
I would tell the Pie Center, you need to go out and you need to flesh this thing out more, like Governor Lee actually directly asked them to do. The local industries need more skin in the game. I would abandon this idea of having companies operating out of it, because I personally think it's basically socialism where government is subsidizing private industry. Look, for example, they were talking about a food service company helping to train their food service kids, which is great, but also running the catering business out of that building. So if you're another local caterer, how are you going to feel about that? Your tax dollars are supporting
I mean, I can't even believe that idea was presented.
Well, that's part of it. So I personally, on philosophical level, I think that's wrong. There's also a backstrip that apparently is slated to be commercial space. Now, I think that's going to be a flop, because I don't know any commercial space that's going to want to
how can the county
locate there.
How can the county get into the commercial business?
Well, that's my point. That is government in direct competition with private, with its own tax base. And that's just fundamentally wrong. It's against what America's supposed to be about. So I'm against that, even though I think it'll fail. You're not going to have people buy retail. You know, here's the thing. No one's even talked about the traffic flow here. You know, on top of the fact that they're running a third busing route as well. So not only are you going to have more people coming and going over there, you're going to have buses trying to come and go over there.
Well, let me ask something. What's going on with the building that they were selling over there that had the school in it? What was the name of the school?
The Goal Academy.
The Goal Academy. What's happening?
Well, that was a stellar business move. You sold it for $600,000, and it's going to cost 2.3 or something million to put it back. Businesses do that all the time. Here, let me take my functioning operation, sell it, and then rebuild it for triple the cost.
Well, what my question is what's going to happen to those kids in the meantime?
They're occupying the building. It was sold for $700,000, but then there's $100,000 that's being paid back while they continue to occupy the building.
So they've got it.
I don't know what the time frame on that is.
Yeah.
But they've got over $2 million. So, you know, they had this thing slated in phases. They have enough money to take care of phase one. So if I was a county commissioner, I'd say you all need to go back to the drawing board, take care of phase one, like you said, and figure this thing out. Now, it's going to punch a big hole in it to say you can't have people operating a business out of it, but I just fundamentally think that's wrong. But you got to get local industry to say, you know, for example, I was told about one of them down in Georgia that they went and looked at. And they said, well, what we're trying to avoid is down there, one of the companies pulled out. And when they pulled out, you know, it was a big, I don't know if the program collapsed or it was just a big hole. But
right.
Guess what? That company built the program.
Right.
The county wasn't out anything. So they're telling me that like that's a bad thing. I said, I don't see that as a bad thing.
No.
How's that a bad thing?
No, here's what happened. Here's the good thing from that. The improvements were done to the building from the other company. And they pulled out. Now then, somebody else can come in and those improvements have been made.
Well, my point is they pulled out, but the county taxpayer wasn't on the hook. That's just life. Things come and go. Businesses move and they make decisions. But the point is that business had put the money into the system. That's what we need here. We need the local businesses saying, we'll put up $1 million. We'll put up $2 million.
All right, here's what needs to happen. And the Pie Center.
To answer the question you asked a minute ago,
all right.
Been doing a little research while you guys were talking. The mayor's proposed budget is $40.5 million, but the revenue is $39 million. So it's $1 million, almost $1.5 million from the fund balance. So
what is the fund balance though?
I don't know the answer to that.
It was 11.
But that's a pretty big dip.
It had grown $1 million from last year. I believe 10 million something last year, and it's 11 million something this year.
You know, we have a fund for when the economy goes bad, basically. True. And that's taken $1.5 million out of it.
The problem with that is you and I argue these kind of things on state and national levels too. Dollar values don't tell you anything. It's the percentages that you need to know.
Well,
you need to know what the percentage is.
The bottom line is the budget is not balanced with current revenue. It's balanced by taking money out of savings.
One of the reasons too is that our expected growth in revenue is going to be down this year because of the audit from the comptroller's office.
That's the biggest thing, I think, that they had anticipated that money and now it's not coming.
Right.
So now they're in a bind.
Well, according to Commissioner Blake here last time, that was $600,000. This is almost $1.5 million. So there's another $900,000 that's.
But the biggest problems I see is EMS
property.
EMS. They need to hire 10 more people there. They're talking about putting a $5,000 bonus on for hiring, and also the county deputies.
Well, it's a perfectly rational conversation to talk about what the long-term cost is of hiring employees and not training them and not being able to keep them. That's a perfectly rational conversation because does it cost more to start all over training somebody again when you replace them? That requires a lot of analysis.
That would have been a perfectly logical conversation to have before we went and set up our own county fire department, one of only, I think, either 4 or 5 in the entire state. So think about that. 90 counties don't have a county fire department. 5 do. And the bulk of the 5 are counties like Davidson, Shelby, big metro government counties. Now, that has nothing to do with the county firemen and women. It's whether that should have been done this way or whether we should have pursued some kind of cooperative agreement with the city. But we were too busy, us and then them. And then,
well, no, wait a minute. They did a study, and the study was it wasn't going to save us any money, John.
We talked about that study at the time. The study was ridiculous. And the study counted on things like it's only going to cost us $250,000 to buy a fire engine, and it turned out to cost $450,000. Now, I'm sorry. If you ask me, what's it going to cost to buy a Chevy pickup truck, in a matter of minutes, I can give you a pretty close estimate to what a Chevy pickup truck's going to cost.
All right.
But somehow we missed the fire trucks by almost half.
From 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock today, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Pie Center will be open.
What's open?
Well, it's going to be open for
people
to tour.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's been done over there, has it?
I don't know, John. I'm going to go see. Okay. I want to see what they're going to do. Hey, I'm going to see what they're going to do. I've ridden around that building, and I'm going to tell you what my opinion is.
What's your opinion?
I think they're trying to develop too much building. They don't need all that building. What they need to do is tear part of it off and sell it for parking lot to Lee or somebody, and use the back end of it for all these big companies, the big companies that want to come in and do stuff, and they still would have room for that school to go in there.
And I've said this before,
but I'm going to go see.
You know why that property sat there and didn't sell?
Because it was too high.
Because it was too high, but also because most people looked at it, and you know what the building was on that property?
The ceilings were too low.
The building was not an asset. The building was a liability.
Parts of it were. Yeah, you're right. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Yeah, you looking for something sweet? I know you are. Bring your little sweet self to the Village Bake Shop. Around since 1961, there ain't a baked good in the galaxy. The Village Bake Shop can't whip up for you. So when you're ready to treat your mouth to a taste you won't soon forget, get over to the Village Bake Shop in the Village Green Town Center. Or give them a call at 476-5179. You dig?
Another SOS, and you're stressing, and that's the time to check in. I check into cash.
It's that time again. Are you more back to school or back to bills? When you need extra cash, text the word quote to 55670 for a free, no obligation quote. Learn how much cash you can pre-qualify for. That's quote to 55670. Get pre-qualified today.
Your one-stop money shop. Check into cash.
Boy, you can sure tell it's summertime, and it's getting hot, but you can beat the heat at Economy Rentals. Yes, beat the heat for only $25.95 a week with a 15,000 BTU air conditioner. That's only $25.95 a week. Economy Rentals, Cleveland's oldest and locally owned rent-to-own store, makes it easy to own. Whether you're looking for appliances, furniture, TVs, electronics, and more. Don't forget, you can always get the washer and dryer combo, only $21.95 a week, or 2 rooms of furniture, only $39.95 a week. But don't forget, beat the heat now. Get you some AC, baby. Call 472-6105 or go by 901 Sahara Drive. That's 472-6105 or 901 Sahara Drive. EconomyRentals.net and on Facebook. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Man, it feels good in here with this AC. Woo.
Yeah, you looking for something sweet? I know you are. Bring your little sweet self to the Village Bake Shop. Around since 1961, there ain't a baked good in the galaxy. The Village Bake.
Why would you put up with a heating and cooling system that cycles on and off when you can have quiet, true comfort, variable speed by train? It runs at low speeds with continuous little adjustments to keep your home comfortable and quiet. It's always been hard to stop a train. Now, it's hard to hear one.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone, day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installation for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train.
Matthews Pool and Spa Company, located in Cleveland, Bradley County for over 45 years. You know them. They're your new swimming pool construction and supply company in Cleveland, Tennessee, now with 4 generations of Matthews to serve you. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, for over 45 years, your swimming pool construction and supply company, spa or hot tub installation and maintenance. Get all of your supplies for your pool or spa right now. That's the new location in the old Quinn Electric Company building behind KFC at 2724 Keith Street in Cleveland. Call Matthews now, 476-4521. You better get your order in now for your new pool construction for this spring and summer. 476-4521. Matthews Pool and Spa Company. Gonna jump in. Woo! Attention, Cleveland area creditors. Are you tired of dealing with debtors that owe you money? I'm Jeff Renfro, and I've owned and operated Financial Recovery, a debt recovery specialist here in my hometown of Cleveland for 18 years. We're a licensed and bonded Tennessee collection agency working for a wide variety of creditors, from commercial, manufacturing, physicians, dentists, attorneys, small business owners, to individuals. Look, any kind of business dealing with billing, charge accounts, or even return checks. I know your past due accounts are not a top priority for you, but they would be to me. Let me try to make it easy for you to make a change in the way you've been handling your accounts. There's no contract and no cost to you in most cases, as our fee of only 30% can be added to the balance owed to you. So, whether you have hundreds of accounts monthly and need help with your billing and collection, or you're just an individual and somebody owes you money, let me help you. Give me a call at 400-5376 and I'll come by and see you. That's 400-5376. Financial Recovery, a licensed and bonded collection agency in Cleveland, Tennessee. 400-5376.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right. Every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239. Or go see him
Every Saturday.
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
Oh, yeah, we're back, folks. We ain't got anything settled, but we're back.
So now, how much is this roof going to cost on the Pie Center building?
About $2 million, $2.5 million. They said they didn't know if that was going to be enough.
And we paid how much for the building?
I don't know. Too much.
Over $2 million.
Yeah.
2.3 or something
So
like
we're
that.
going to pay as much or more for the
So
roof.
now it's going to be a $5 million building.
You can build a new school for $12
And we
million.
haven't even, but that hadn't even addressed the plumbing, the walls, the insulation.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
just the roof.
Doing a little research during the break there, I think there's a much bigger issue that we ought to be talking about here. It's true that, you know, the county mayor has proposed a balanced budget, but the reality is, over the last 4 years, during this booming economy we've had, the fund balance, our emergency fund balance, has fallen almost 50% during that period of time, which means we've been dipping into it
Now,
to keep
I
it
want to say
balanced.
something. The Cleveland Daily Banner does not report that.
Well, that is from the actual budget numbers.
Well, the
That's from
Cleveland
the
Daily
state's-
Banner,
From the county's budget documents.
and what I read, it went up from last year to this year over, I think, $1 million or something.
But we're taking that money back out to keep the budget balanced, is what
Here's the thing.
I understand
If you
that.
had a booming economy, and as I've said before, your money's been actually going up around $1 million a year, plus the sales tax increase of another $250,000, and you've still been dipping into your rainy day fund, once again, hard decisions would be, we're spending too much.
All right, here.
But wait a minute. One thing, what Franklin is sort of getting at here, though, is if our fund balance is actually in jeopardy, that's a legitimate conversation. And even people like me would look at that and go, okay, if that's why you're raising taxes because you don't, we're in trouble with our fund balance, I'll entertain that conversation. So why are they BSing us with this excuse and that excuse and not just being honest if this is correct?
Well, the fund balance is supposed to be where?
It's supposed to be 10%.
Well, and it is at that level. The point is that over the last 4 years,
It's
it appears to have fallen from about 23% down to 10%, which means that we've been dipping into it every year in order to achieve a balanced budget. John's right. You either have to look at the spending or the revenue.
Well, I'm going to say the
that.
way the newspaper reported that's not correct.
I don't think getting into
the
the quote rainy day money is necessarily the way to do that, because eventually the economy is going to go.
Budget?
That's my point. Well, that's the conversation.
Where's the saving?
We should be having the conversation about the fund balance if we've been dipping into it like this. We shouldn't be talking about the pie center.
How we're going to stop it? How we're going to save money?
Well, they're going to raise taxes. And I guess they don't want to tell us, by the way, we've not been managing the money very well.
Well, we've got a lot of stuff that we've done. There's the Spring Branch Industrial Park out there. That's a big expenditure. There's no industry out there yet, is there?
No.
So there's that. You got the Pie Center.
Hey,
that's a big
let's
one.
buy a dilapidated old building for about 5 times what it's worth, and then let's try to figure out what to do with it.
At least the city is smart enough not to do that.
What?
Yeah,
John, I wish you
brag
could,
on them.
John, I wish you could go with me this morning to look at the Pie Center.
Well, I've seen the plans.
Okay.
Ask them when they show you where the retail space is going to be and the person operating the business. Ask them how that differs from Marx's theory of government owning all the industry.
I don't have to ask. I know. Let me tell you something. I've dealt with real estate for a long time, but I'm going to tell you something that won't work. All right. We talked about that for a long time.
I suspect we'll be talking about it again next week.
You think so?
I do, actually.
Hey, Glacier National Park has removed the sign that said that the glacier would be gone by 2020 because it's actually grown. Obama had them put a sign up that it would be gone by 2020, and they've had to quietly take that down. It literally had a sign, this glacier will be gone by 2020.
Well, we're talking about schools and so forth. Here's an interesting thing I came across. Columbine shooting. The school district there is suggesting tearing the school down.
Yeah, I guess it's the memory. I don't know. That's a decision I think the local community would have to make.
People are there. It's like a tourist attraction.
Well, that's a pretty
People are
that's a
coming there to see
pretty
it.
poor comment on our culture. Who the hell wants to go? I believe I want to go see a mass murder site on purpose. I specifically want to go to see it. Something's wrong with people. By the way, in that regard, there was, I think it's Kristen Gillibrand, actually just out and out lied. And, Franklin's all the time asking why we think that people are coming to get our guns. She just out and out lied, not only about the president, but about gun control right off the bat. She made the statement that after the Parkland shooting, the Las Vegas shooting, that people wanted to ban bump stocks, but President Trump, now this is her own words, President Trump gave in to the NRA and didn't do it. He did do it. He banned bump stocks.
Yeah.
He did he actually went against the NRA and he banned bump stocks. It went into effect December 2018, and she is flat out lying straight to the public.
Few clarifications. The Park Service took down the sign saying they would be gone by 2020, but not that they were growing. They're still receding. No, they're not. And there's plenty of photographic evidence to prove it.
All right. Here's the deal, Franklin. Some are growing, some are receding. The Arctic ice has actually grown.
No, it's not.
It has, Franklin. You're wrong.
It was actually 83 degrees last week, just short of the Arctic Circle in Sweden. It's never been recorded like that before. Ever.
Glaciers are actually growing. The ice at the South Pole grew significantly.
You really got to get out.
The icebreaker going to study actually got locked in the ice, Franklin, last year.
Oh, well.
And on top of the fact,
global warming,
it doesn't change the fact that the sign said that glacier would be gone by 2020. And it was wrong.
And it's still smaller than it was.
Do you think that cool day we had yesterday was part of global warming?
Obviously.
That caused it?
Yeah.
But Franklin, what do you think about Christian Gillibrand just flat out lying?
I think she should be held accountable.
This is her actual quote. Stop being beholden to the National Rifle Association like President Trump is. Remember after the shooting in Las Vegas, he said, yeah, we're going to ban the bump stocks. Mm-hmm. Did he ban the bump stocks? No, because the NRA came crashing down and said, don't you dare do any restrictions on our guns around this country. That's her quote.
That's her lie.
He banned the bump stocks in 2018, December.
Right.
I can read you the ruling from Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker. So, Franklin?
Well, there was legislation that came through the Congress that he then signaled he would not sign, right? Isn't that what she's referring to?
He did it through the ATF, which, by the way, is the same way the Obama administration actually legalized.
I'm just asking you for a clarification, John. Is that not true?
No, I don't
know.
The
legislation that was presented in Congress never went anywhere.
Franklin, I don't know about that. She specifically called President Trump out, and he specifically took action through the Justice Department to put the bump stock in as a machine gun, so it is banned under federal law. And she's out and out lying about him. And that's also why gun owners don't trust people like her or people on your side.
Franklin, I have a question for you.
What's that?
Do you think Mexico is doing more to help immigration now than the Democrats are?
To help immigration? What do you mean?
The immigration problem we're having at the border. Illegals.
I don't know. None of us know that yet.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you had this quote deal that the president announced.
The quote deal.
That turns out were things that they...
I thought he had a signed agreement.
He does.
So he says, but nobody can see it or read it. He also said his tariff threat caused that, but it turns out the things that he touted, they agreed to 6 months ago. So it had nothing to do with the tariff.
Why don't y'all just admit that you were wrong?
Why don't you just admit he shows up on TV and lies daily?
Franklin, he didn't. He
couldn't
threatened
even
terror.
come out and say we've been negotiating with them and they agreed to do this.
We've known they've been negotiating with them.
Instead, he created this big myth that wasn't even true.
Everybody knew it was public knowledge that we were negotiating with Mexico. But he did threaten them with tariffs, and the threat probably helped prod them along. Your side just can't admit that he's winning.
They agreed to it before the threat.
He's winning, Franklin. Admit it.
And there's no evidence.
And the American people are winning because of it. And China has now looked at this. And China has looked at this, Franklin, and said, okay, there's the partnership between Canada, America, and Mexico stronger than ever. Mexico is now, I believe, our number 2 top trading partner.
They already were.
China is looking at that and saying, we need to get on the ball with this, or they're gonna cut us out of the deal.
Sure.
Hey, Franklin, John Dean says that Robert Mueller needs to come and testify.
Okay, I agree with that.
What would he say?
Well, I don't know. That's why we have people testify.
Didn't he say everything in his report would be the only thing?
That is what he said. Well, that doesn't mean there aren't questions about it. And the other part of it is, you know what? Why should we be scared of that?
I'm not scared.
Well, we're not scared. The Republicans want him to come.
We're tired.
For example,
I would love for him to come
we've now found a fourth thing that he left out of the report.
Okay.
The common knowledge was that the surveillance on General Flynn began in December of 2016. We're now found out that it actually began in January of 2016, an issue that the Mueller report actually leaves out.
January of 16.
January of 2016 rather than
that's
December.
After the election?
No. It rather than I'm sorry, 2015. No, 2016. They said 2016 was when it started, which would be right before Trump took office. It actually started almost a year earlier, January 2016. He had made a phone call to the Russian ambassador, and they started in it. And again, it's that Stephen Halper, one of their informants, called him and set. Matter of fact, Halper's now being sued by the girl that he tried to use to get information from her. So we now know that the surveillance on Flynn actually started a year before we've been told.
And what was the reason for that, John?
Well, because I'll read it to you and you can see. He made a phone call to Kislyak in January.
And who is Kislyak?
He is the Russian ambassador. He made a phone call. Let me read it to you. He made it because he was going to Russia to deliver a speech. There's a 302 file which has up till this point been undisclosed. It was just released. So the Mueller report didn't mention this 302 document. It was a courtesy call. Flynn was scheduled to speak in Moscow at a Russian Today event about Middle East issues for which he was paid $45,000. He was supposed to sit next to Putin at the dinner. The 302 that Mueller didn't mention indicates that Flynn received the appropriate threat briefing from U.S. officials before attending, which means he notified the government that he was going. He got a threat assessment and a threat briefing before he went. So he did everything right. But they used the fact that he called the Russian ambassador to say, hey, I'm going, as a pretext to start spying on him a year before we previously knew.
Or some of the content of that call, maybe.
Franklin,
you don't know that.
The fact is, why would Mueller not mention that 302 in the Mueller report? That meant they started spying over almost a year earlier than we previously thought.
Here's what I understand takes place routinely. Whether you like it or agree with it's a different question. But when you make phone calls internationally, the NSA computers do grab those, don't they?
True.
Don't they?
True.
Okay. And supposedly the computers have some kind of algorithm in or something that if you have certain content, it flags it for further review.
You're right.
Is that right? And we don't know what the content of those communications
were. The problem with what you're saying. You're right, but that's about that phone call. It's not about starting to surveil the American citizen, which they're not supposed to do, which they did. They started to surveil Flynn almost a year previously than we previously knew. And why would Mueller not include that in the Mueller report?
Wonder why.
This is the fourth thing.
Because that would have been outside the scope of what he was supposed to advise?
Franklin.
Well, then that's all the more reason for him to come testify, isn't it?
I said we're not afraid of Mueller appearing.
Well, we're not either.
I think Mueller's afraid of appearing.
I think Mueller's tired of he's tired of all this.
You never answered me last week. Why would Mueller put in a 404? Hang on. Why would he put a phone conversation, the transcript, in the report, but edit in the middle of it 2 sentences out? Why would he do that?
Here's a better question. The better question would be, Michael Flynn surely knew that his conversations with those folks were being recorded because it was an international call, right?
No, actually, the ambassador's in Washington. It was not an international call.
Well, you don't know if his calls were going internationally or
The
not.
ambassador is in Washington. Flynn was it was all within the United States. And he registered his visit with the government.
You're pretty sure that calls to Russian national officials are being recorded,
obviously.
Right? Okay. So with that knowledge, a better question would be, why did Flynn lie about it later?
He didn't lie.
Yeah, he did. That's what he got convicted of.
The two FBI agents admitted they didn't think he lied, Franklin.
That's not what they said.
They did.
They said we didn't think at the time he was lying.
And this is not the call.
That doesn't mean they didn't determine
later. It's not
later
the same
he was
call,
lying.
Franklin. This is a call a year earlier.
The point is, he was knowing that those communications were being monitored. He still was deceptive and misleading.
Our government spied on U.S. citizens, and they're not supposed to. Plain and simple.
Let me ask you something. Do you think Bill Barr misrepresented the Mueller report?
To an extent, yeah.
How do you mean that?
Well, because later on what he's come out and clarified it is saying that we didn't agree with Mueller's interpretation of the law, and that's why we made the decisions we made.
Actually,
that is what he said.
Alan Dershowitz says Mueller shouldn't have made any interpretations.
Well, I love how you go to some liberal when he agrees with you, but that's the only time.
So one of the most prominent liberal legal authorities
it
in the
doesn't matter
country
that 50 others have a different.
Teaches at Harvard Law.
Well, I know you're a big Harvard guy.
What do you think the Democrats learned by having John Dean on television all day yesterday?
I honestly don't really care. Number
It was
one.
a show. The Democrats were putting on a show.
Number two, though, I don't have any problems with reminders of how important it is that our government officials not lie.
So, in other words, you think that it's okay use of taxpayer dollars for a committee to bring a witness on that has absolutely zero evidence to bring forward,
They do it every
zero
day of the
connection
year, don't
in
they?
order for a show
They
on
do
TV.
it every day of the year, don't they?
Well, a convicted felon and liar.
What did John Dean get convicted for? What was he convicted for?
He was part of the Watergate cover-ups.
Initially perjury, and then also
Lied.
conspiracy to obstruct justice, as I recall.
What's interesting is
So he's the expert.
By the way, he's a paid CNN contributor.
He's your expert.
He's a paid CNN contributor, and he is a huge Trump critic. He, in the hearing yesterday, he said Trump had, now this is his quote, as POTUS, he is incapable of accomplishing anything. Well, Congressman Jordan said, well, what were you thinking when you said that? Were you thinking about 3.2% economic growth we had the last quarter? Were you thinking about the fact we got the lowest unemployment in 50 years? How about the fact that hostages are back from North Korea? How about the fact that we moved the embassy from to Jerusalem? And so he asked Dean, and you know what Dean answered about what he was thinking when he said he hadn't accomplished anything? He said, parliamentary rules prevent me from giving a full answer. The room bursted out in laughter.
Oh, golly. What do you think about California extending health benefits to all illegals?
It's their money. They can do what they choose.
It's not
to
their
do.
money. They're broke. They're broke. As we speak, they're
It
broke.
is their money. They can make those
So
decisions.
there
for
are
themselves.
millions.
It's
Hang on.
California money.
There are millions of people in California who are on disability, who are on waiting rolls for Medicare
That are
and
moving.
Medicaid payments. U.S. citizens that are on waiting lists for this, and they're going to divert money to non-U.S. citizens while people die on waiting lists.
Why would you give non-U.S. citizens?
Because their ideology is more important than the reality.
Franklin, does that make sense to you? I mean, should we give all illegals free health care? I mean, is that not like sending that? That's kind of like putting what they call it, putting a carrot on the stick.
Last week, they caught over 100 migrants crossing the border from Africa. People from all over the world. And now we know that ISIS actually has plans. We've discovered plans to smuggle people across the southern border.
An overwhelming number of people they've detained at the border were families.
Over 90% of which
That doesn't mean it's not an important
DHS said
issue,
over
but that's
90%
the
of which
reality.
did not show up for their court hearing.
How about the 10% that were crooks? That could
Look,
be,
if you
could
get
be
killed by
somebody
one
could
of
kill
those,
you.
you're just a number.
Well,
We
that
don't
doesn't
care
mean
about
that
you.
10% of them were crooks. That's
What?
not what they said.
Well, well, 90%.
I said 97 were families, I said.
And 90% of those people didn't show up for their court hearings.
Yeah.
That's not true.
It is true. DHS said it this past week, testified to it. By the way, I thought this was actually really interesting. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted something, and Katie Pavlich immediately tweeted back. This is really kind of neat. I'm interested in what you think, Franklin. So Cortez tweets, psst, and that was, she tweeted, psst, psst, birth control should be over the counter. Pass it on. Isn't that cool? Katie Pavlich immediately tweeted back, Republicans proposed this. Planned Parenthood said no. Planned Parenthood actually lobbied against it and ran attack ads against the Republicans over it. You know why? Because Planned Parenthood is a profiteer on abortion and over-the-counter contraception. Well, Franklin, tell me why Planned Parenthood lobbied against over-the-counter.
Well, I'll have to look into that one, but I do know this. Abortion has a very small portion of any revenue that comes into Planned Parenthood.
That's not true.
That is true.
Planned Parenthood.
And there's
is-
no
is-
way you can say
Planned
otherwise, John,
Parenthood
because
is
you
an-
know that the abortion rate has fallen dramatically over the last 10 years.
And that's
There's
why
no
they
way
did,
it
that's
could be
why
a
they
significant
didn't want,
portion of the revenue.
That's why they didn't want over-the-counter
You know
contraceptives.
that's true.
They are a abortion profiteer.
They make
plain and
much more
simple.
money over providing birth control services.
And who pays for that? U.S. taxpayer, which is a right pocket, left pocket argument.
Okay. If you say so, John.
And Biden is trying to explain why he flip-flopped on the Hyde Amendment as we speak.
What do you
40
think?
plus years supporting the Hyde Amendment.
What do you think his reason for changing was, Franklin?
Well, I know what he said. And I suspect the answer is partially that and partially political.
Here's the really sad part for a man that says he wants to be president. It's Alyssa Milano is the reason he changed.
Sure
Alyssa Milano went after him online.
He had a rally yesterday, and they said there was 70-something people there in Iowa.
Big time. What was the president's rally? He was in Iowa, too. How many were at his rally?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's the president's so overwhelmingly
And by the
popular
way,
since he's
Elon
polling,
Omar-
since he's polling underwater in North Carolina and Texas.
So Elon Omar, we can add to her list
Wait,
of...
you like to talk about Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. How about her and Ted Cruz?
I'm all for it.
Okay.
I thought that was a good thing.
Well, you didn't mention that. Any of that praise, though.
Actually, I think I brought it up a week or
No,
so ago.
I know you didn't.
What was that?
Her and Ted Cruz agreed on something.
They've
Actually, she
agreed to
posted
co-sponsor
something.
a
Well,
bill.
Franklin, you and
But
John
now
have
here's the thing about it.
have agreed
I'll
on
give her
things.
credit for responding, but Cruz is the one that made the outreach. She popped something up there, and Ted Cruz said,
But she was,
"I agree
but
with
she
you,
was
and I'll co-sponsor
criticizing
it."
congressmen for doing it, right? They're
It was the
proposing
lobbying,
a bill
revolving
to
door on lobbying.
Prevent congressmen from lobbying after.
And
they
by the
leave
way,
office.
Ted Cruz has put that forward for years now.
Okay. Well, he got a willing partner there, didn't he?
Well, actually, she once again popped it out without actually researching it, kind of like this over-the-counter thing. And he popped back and said, "Fine, I pushed that for
what's
years."
the American Medical Association's position on that over-the-counter birth control issue?
I don't know, Franklin.
They're for it. They're for it.
Republicans proposed it, and Democrats opposed it. Democrats and Planned Parenthood opposed it, Franklin. Thanks for helping my point.
Okay.
So the AMA and Republicans want this. Democrats and Planned Parenthood fought against it and actually ran attack ads against Republicans over the issue.
Hey, I want to have a little fun. We're leaving right now, but I want to have some fun before we do. To the second phone caller that calls me, I've got a Donald Trump 2020 hat to give away. The second phone caller.
Well, you know, we should already be off the air, so
I
I guess
know.
we're
We're going to see if anybody's listening. Hey, nobody wants to.
By the way, the Masterpiece Bake Shop is being sued again
for what?
because the liberals are so open and tolerant. Well, this one is a transgender, and he wouldn't make a transgender.
There's a call,
cake.
Frank. There's a call. Hello, caller.
Hello there, Steve.
I'm sorry, you're the first caller, not the second.
I know it.
All right, we got to have the next call.
All right, so this guy will turn around and call back. I would.
Let's see. Here we go.
You think I could wear a Trump hat?
I think you could.
Well, what about that?
All right.
Just leave it down there and I'll pick it up, brother.
All right. See you later.
Thank you.
Now, what you said is partially right
About what?
on the Planned Parenthood.
Hey, folks, I'm sorry to say we're out of time. Bye-bye now. See you next week.